Bible says, "For though I be free from all men, yet have I made myself servant unto all, that I might gain the more. And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. To them that are without law, as without law, being not without law to God, but under the law to Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. To the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak." And then notice this is the key phrase here that we're going to key in on and really think about, is the end of verse 22 and the beginning of verse 23. "I am made all things to all men." Why? "That I might by all means save some. And this I do for the gospel's sake, that I might be partaker thereof with you." The title of the message this evening is "All Things to All Men." That is really the spirit, the attitude that I need to have going forward in my life, is that I need to be willing to allow the Holy Spirit to speak to me and to guide me in being all things to all men, that by some means I could save some. So Paul here is, in a nutshell, saying, I want to do everything that I can to reach as many people as I can with the gospel of Christ. We know that the Apostle Paul was a missionary. That's what we call him. We say he was a missionary. In fact, some may even say he was one of, or the greatest missionary to ever walk the earth. The word missionary is used, I believe, only once in the New Testament. So if we're going to understand, that's just kind of a term that we have coined, and we know what we're talking about when we say missionary. For the most part, when I say missionary, what do you think of? You think of someone who is sharing the gospel, right? And we know that I am a missionary, you're a missionary, that we ought to share the gospel with someone. But more specifically, when we think missionary, we generally associate it with someone who goes to a foreign land, a foreign field, and stays there and lives there with their family, raises their family there, and starts churches and reaches people with the gospel on a foreign land. That's what we associate with a missionary. That is what has become the pattern for missions, but that is not necessarily what missions looks like in the Bible. Just hold on. So, a missionary, if you want to study and see what missions look like in the Bible, you can't do a Bible study on the word missions or missionary, because you're not going to find much. What we have to look at is the word apostle. The apostles, Peter, James, and John, and Paul, and all these other men that saw Jesus Christ face to face, they were the first, what we would consider, missionaries, right? They were those who went to different places, to their hometowns first, and then began to reach into different places to reach other people with the gospel. So when we say missionary, the Bible word really for missionary would be apostle. So if we want to understand what Bible missions looks like, we would study apostleship. Well, what is the definition of a Bible missionary then? I'm glad you asked. Romans chapter 1 and verse 5. Turn there. I believe it's the only other text I'll have you turn. And I've got to get there myself. Here's a definition of a missionary. Romans 1 verse 5. By whom we have received grace and apostleship. Okay, we're talking about these men received apostleship from Jesus. Being an apostle meant you saw Jesus face to face in the flesh. So these men saw Jesus. Jesus was the one who made them apostles. And now we're going to see what the definition of an apostle, or in this case, a missionary, is. For obedience to the faith among all nations for His name. That's it. That is what missions is. It is being obedient to the faith. That requires a whole lot of things, more so than just go on to another field and share the gospel. There's a lot that goes into our faith, right? There's a lot that God requires of us. So missions is obedience to the faith among all nations for His name. So, as Brother King talked about last week, we are not second-rate missionaries, or we don't have a lesser or smaller part in missions than what our missionaries that we support have. Because, yes, without them, we wouldn't have that reach into foreign lands, but without us, they wouldn't be there. Because we're supporting them in prayer, we're encouraging them, we're sending them funds so that they can be there. So this thought that, well, I'm not a missionary, but, at least maybe I can do something for God. No, that's not it at all. We're all missionaries, and we all have different parts in the work, but we are all key, important factors in missions, because we all can be obedient to the faith. We all can have a part in that obedience to faith among all the nations, and we can all do it for His name's sake. All right, so we need to change our mindset. I need to change my mindset on, well, I'm not a missionary, but I can be a pastor, so I can do something. No. We're all together doing this thing for missions. So now I want to see, of course, we know that we are all missionaries as well. Okay, we get that. And you can't just say, well, I'll let so-and-so be the one who gives the gospel, and I'll just be the guy who gives. Giving is part of missions, but it doesn't get you off the hook for sharing the gospel. And vice versa. If you're someone who's great at sharing the gospel, but maybe the pocketbook's a little tight, that doesn't get you off the hook for giving to missions. It all is part of it. All right? We are all missionaries, meaning we all need to share the gospel. Hudson Taylor said this: the Great Commission is not an option to be considered. It is a command to be obeyed. It's not, God makes a compelling argument that, I should share the gospel, and He makes some good points. I'll have to think about it. No, you'll have to do it because God commands it. Sharing the gospel is a command that must be obeyed. That one's upside down. It's important to be knowledgeable about whom we're reaching. This evening, I wanted to give a basic groundwork, but we're going to talk specifically about how we can do things in a tangible way, how I can begin preparing tonight, how I can begin preparing tomorrow and this week and this year as I focus on, okay, I need to share the gospel. How can I get better at doing that? Not everybody is going to look like us, the people that we're going to share the gospel. There's going to be people who have different backgrounds. There's going to be people who have no church background, who are of different race, who are of different nationality, who have much less than us, who have zero understanding of the Bible. So we're going to have to, if you're going to be effective in sharing the gospel, you can't just put in, like a filter search and say, well, I'll share anyone with the gospel who's, a white male, about my size and build, and likes the things that I like. I'll share the gospel with them. You have to be able to share the gospel with everyone. A young person, a teenager, a middle-aged person, an older person, male, female, white, black, church background, no church background. So how can we prepare ourselves for all of these different scenarios? Paul said he became all things to all men for the gospel's sake. Look at this. Look at verse number 20 again. And unto the Jews I became as a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them under the law. Paul, when he knew he was in a place that was predominantly Jewish, he was in a place that were predominantly those who were maybe Pharisees who followed the letter of the law. If Paul was trying to reach the Jews, he wouldn't take his pet pig for a walk and be eating a plate of bacon while he was trying to reach the Jews, okay? Because that would be offensive to the Jews. Now, Paul said all things are not all things are expedient, right? Some things may be allowable, not expedient. So Paul was trying to be basically a spiritual chameleon and say, hey, if it's allowable, I'm going to try to fit in with this group of people as much as I can so as not to offend them, and so I have the best chance to reach them, right? So when I'm down at the basketball court with some of the guys, and we see a teenager or whatever, and we invite him to play ball, I'm going to be just acting a whole lot different than if I was sitting in a room at tender care talking to an elderly person on their deathbed. I wouldn't go up to that, person and say, "Hey, bro, how's it going today, man? That was, it's going to be a little bit different." Now, is that me being two-faced? Is that me being not disingenuous? No. But I can adapt, right? To be relatable to that teenager, being relatable to that elderly person. And that's where I want us to get this evening is, how can I be prepared in all those situations? Say, well, I just don't get kids these days. Well, I don't either. I thought I did until there were some different things, even with the teenagers now, where I realized really quickly it doesn't take long to be completely out of touch, right? And just super not cool really fast, right? Oh, the words that you used when you were in high school that were cool and in, trust me, they're not in anymore. They're not cool, all right? Groovy is not a cool word. Tubular is not a cool word. And even ones that I thought were cool when I was in college and even a few years ago, they're not in anymore, right? I have no idea what's cool anymore. But it is okay to stay in touch so that we can relate to those whom we're trying to reach. We can be all things to all men. Hudson Taylor, a great missionary, when he went to China, he was one of the first missionaries that kind of, at least that was documented, that would do this. He would, as the apostle did, become all things to all men. He ate the Chinese food, and he adopted the Chinese clothing. He grew out his hair long and dyed it black. Why did he do that? Did he grow his hair long? In America, that was considered, when a girl that he was dating, his dad said, "I don't want you dating that guy. He's got long hair. He's a punk. He doesn't really care about the Lord." He was not doing that to have an attitude, to be rebellious. He was doing it 100% to try to fit in as much as he could in the Chinese culture. And he was able to reach a large portion of China with the gospel, a country that was hostile towards the gospel, that was very closed off to the gospel. Why? Because he learned how to become all things to all men. And the thing is, when you ask the Lord to give you that heart and you ask the Lord to give you that wisdom, okay, that's not like basic Christianity, okay? We're taking the next step. And you're going to have some Holy Spirit guidance. You're going to have some spiritual wisdom when it comes to that. I'll give you a great example that I just thought of, okay? Ben, you teach in the high school and elementary too, but you teach in... Now, I don't know this 100%, but I would have to think that part of Ben's reasoning for his appearance with his hair, looks super cool, and his beard and whatnot, is so that there is something about him that looks somewhat relatable. Am I right or wrong? Okay? When you first see Ben, if you don't know him, if you have maybe a judgmental attitude, at first you think, "Oh, that guy, he's a bum. Why is he up on the platform playing the trumpet? He's got a faux hawk, and he just looks like he just got off his Harley." That's not as hard at all. I don't believe. Maybe it is. Maybe he just wants to be a bad boy, and he's still, whenever he goes home, "Dad, you can't tell me what to do," and I don't know. But I don't think so. Does that mean that Ben is, a bum or a lesser of a Christian because he has a faux hawk and I don't? I don't think I could pull that look off. I'm just being honest. He does great. That's just one small thing that don't everybody come with a faux hawk on next on that, right? Well, Ben can do it. I can do it. That's not a big deal. It really is not a big deal. But it could be a big deal to one of his kids that he might have an opportunity to witness to. You say, "Oh, Ben, he's pretty cool, and he's like one of us." And if we allow the Holy Spirit to lead and guide us, what I was trying to say is, that's not just like basic Christianity, right? We have to allow the Holy Spirit to lead and guide us. You only know your heart. You know why you're doing what you're doing. You know if you're doing it out of spirit of rebellion, or you know if you're doing it truly out of heart of, "I'm going to try to do this to reach other people." So let's get into this really quick. Very practical. How can you be made all things to all men practically today or tomorrow? First of all, embrace the uncomfortable. And this kind of goes with hand in hand with, let me give this point first. Forget I said that. Befriend the outsider. There is somebody where you work. There is somebody at church. There is somebody at the store on a park bench. There is somebody in your daily routine that you see that's an outsider. That doesn't get talked too much. That's a little bit different. Maybe he's a little bit crippled. Maybe he talks a little funny. Maybe he smells. That person needs the gospel as much as the next guy does. How can I become all things to all men? Befriend that person. Don't let that person sit alone on the park bench. Sit down before you go into the grocery store and talk to him for a couple minutes. Before you go and do your thing at church or whatever, if there's one of the van kids that's sitting there all by themselves, go sit next to them, please, because they're probably going to destroy something very shortly after that. And talk to them for a few minutes. If there's someone, wherever it is, befriend the outsider. You say, that's uncomfortable. Yeah. Think Jesus did some uncomfortable things for you? Yeah. Embrace the uncomfortable, befriend the outsider. And that's my next point, is embrace the uncomfortable. There are a lot of things that we did growing up that Dad forced us to do that were not comfortable. I think of one thing. One time we were at Metalodge, or Tender Care at the time, as kids. And I'll just be honest, I'm not a germaphobe, because I'm a germaphobe on some things, right? Like I'll go up to my neck in deer guts and poop, but I can't touch the bottom of the sink, okay? When I go into Tender Care, Metalodge, I don't know why, there's just something makes me crawl. I'm just like, don't touch anything, don't eat the food, don't shake the hands, it's just like germ alert to me, okay? So as a kid, I felt that way. We would go in and we'd minister to those people. They loved seeing us. They loved our singing. So I'd go through and shake the hands, right, or whatever. So at Christmas time, these people would want to give us gifts or give us things. And we would get, it was crazy the different things that we would get from these people. Because I'm looking back on it, and now taking my sons and daughters in there, they just eat that up, seeing those kids. Most of them don't have any family that stop by to see them, or if they do, once a year. And they love that opportunity to see us. But this one lady, she wanted to give us some money. She said, I had this saved for my grandkids. In fact, this is sad but true, she thought that my dad was her son. Her son was named Dave, but he never came to see her. And she thought that we were her grandkids. And she gave us some money around Christmas time, because she thought that her son brought her grandkids to see her at Christmas time, and she pulled it out of her sock. And she was definitely not high on the hygiene pole, okay? And she handed it to me, and Dad looked at me like, take it. It was moist. It was a moist $10 bill. And I took it and I put it in my pocket. That was uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Little did I know it would not be the last time that I would receive money. I received money for a CB, a bill from a bus mom in Chicago that came not from her sock, and it was moist. And I took that money. Embrace the uncomfortable. Don't make a face. Do you think Jesus loved what he was having done to him when he was on the cross? And he said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Embrace the uncomfortable. So how can you prepare to become all things to all men? Embrace the outsider. Embrace the uncomfortable. Be selfless in conversation. People love to talk about themselves. If you come up to someone and say, hey, how's it going today? Oh, it's going good. How about you? And then you just start dumping on them how it's going for you. They'll listen politely for a little bit, but as soon as you're done talking, they're looking for that out, right? But if you ask them how it's going, and then you maybe try to pose a question and get them talking, once they start talking about themselves, they'll dump their guts out to you. You're making a connection there. And if you'll not be thinking about how they're so uncomfortable, how you don't really care what they're saying, just stop for a second and listen to what they're saying. More than likely, you're going to learn something about them that you didn't know, You probably realize that you made an assumption about them that's not true, and you're going to be able to pick up tools and ways that you can help them, and you can be a witness to them, looking at it from an unsafe perspective. So be unselfish in conversation, and at the gas pump, at the grocery store, wherever it is where you witness. Strike up a conversation, but do a lot of listening and not a whole lot of talking. You say, well, that's perfect for me. I don't like talking. Perfect. If you're that person who doesn't like talking, get them talking about themselves. They'll carry the conversation. Couple more. Go to their house. And don't be creepy. Don't just show up at their door and look in their window. Try to get to the point where that person, if you listen to them for a while and you strike up a conversation, maybe you meet them again, maybe you get their number and share some text back and forth. It doesn't take long to get someone comfortable enough. Hey, why don't you come over for dinner? If it's that person that you embraced who's the outsider, who's not that lovely, who's maybe a little bit different, it's going to be uncomfortable. But luckily we already had the point, embrace the uncomfortable. Go over to their house. Guess what? Their kitchen might be kind of nasty. Their place might not look great. Eat the food. We were talking with Brother Michael about some different places that he's been and some things that he's done to be all things to all men. In the Ghanaian culture, they hold in high regard when an outsider, especially a white man, is willing to go where they've gone, but even further than that, eat what they eat. And he said they were gutting out a lamb because they were going to have some sheep. And they said, oh, we saved the best part for you. They took out a piece of intestine. They slid out all of what's inside of an intestine. They cut it into pieces. They boiled it in the pot. They gave it to him and said, eat. So he said, they slid out with the poop. They slid out a bucket load of worms and parasites. And he said, you know what I did? I didn't make a face. I didn't say, oh, I can't eat that. He said, I took it and I said, Heavenly Father, I'm doing this to reach these people. Protect me. And he ate it. Didn't get sick. Was he supposed to get sick? 100%. And he said over and over they did things like that. And he said there was one time his wife was making a spot to lay their newborn son on the ground, and she was gathering some branches and whatnot, and there was a drunk that was in the village that they were in. And he was known as being just a nasty, probably that had never showered in his life. And he saw Miss Brooke making a little bed for her baby to lay on the ground. He said, no, don't lay her on the ground. And he brought them his bed to lay the baby on. Something that was 10 times dirtier and nastier. A drunk who soiled himself on that bed, threw up on that bed, fleas, parasites on the bed. And he said, I watched my wife not run around and make a big stink, not reject, not lay the baby on the bed. Why? Become all things to all men, that I might save some. When we adopt that attitude and we get that heart attitude and say, it's not about me, it's not about what's comfortable, it's not about what I like, it's about sharing the gospel with as many people as I can, being relatable, being touchable to them, ultimately so they can get this. When we get to heaven, that little bit of, I don't think we're going to experience a whole lot as extreme as what they do. Praise the Lord for that. He brought some things. I ate some crickets that he had, and they're actually not bad. I might order some on Amazon. We're not going to have to experience anything that odd, but we might have to go out of our comfort zone. We might have to do something uncomfortable. But can you do it for the gospel's sake? Go to their house. A couple more. Learn a few key words in common languages that are different in our country. There's a lot of Spanish-speaking people that are coming into our country. They're coming in illegally. It's really fun to talk about how they're taking our jobs and how all these illegal immigrants, and, we should send them back over the wall where they came, and yada, yada, yada. Whether it's right or wrong, whether how you feel about it or not, the fact is, they're coming, right? So rather than complain about them being here, say, hey, God, I may never get the chance to go to Mexico as a missionary. Thank you for bringing tons of Hispanic people to our country that I can reach. You can have Spanish tracts in your pocket. You can learn a couple of words in Spanish. Okay? Iglesia Baptista. That's Baptist Church. You can learn hello, my name is whatever, in Spanish. You speak a couple of words to someone else in their language, they'll say, oh, that's different. I'm being welcomed in this country. I'm interested in what this person has to say. Boom, a track in their language, and the Lord can work from there. Are you willing to put your feelings aside, put their, these illegal immigrants, they don't deserve to be here. I don't care if I listen to one more Spanish, commercial on the, okay, whatever. But are you willing to reach those people with the gospel? If they die and go to hell unsaved, if they die unsaved, they'll go to hell just like white people, just like black people, just like the Chinese. Are we willing to reach them? And one thing that you can do is download a Spanish app. In 10 minutes, you can figure out how to introduce yourself in Spanish. Just put that in your back pocket. Pull it out when you need it. 2 more. Oh, 1 more. Be knowledgeable in many areas. And I'll hasten here because I know our time is done. Be knowledgeable in many areas. For the most part, we're going to have the opportunity to talk to people who are of our nationality, who know everything basically that we know. But so often we become so narrow-minded, we can't carry on a conversation. What would I say to somebody who I just met? Broaden your horizons, right? Rather than just being knowledgeable on 1 or 2 things, learn a little bit about a lot of things so that you have a connection point. I'll give a few examples. Sports. Sports is a huge connection point. Most people have a team that they'll cheer for. Whenever I see a sports flag or something on the porch when I'm soul winning, that's the thing that I go to first. Detroit Tigers fan, are you? Man, we've had some bad years this year. I know really nothing about the Tigers right now, except that they stink. And that's all you got to do, and then they'll carry on the conversation. Trust me. Same thing with the Pistons, same thing with the Red Wings, same thing with the Lions. Pretty much if they're a Michigan team, you can just talk about how they stink, and they'll carry on the conversation. Sports. You can download a sports app on your phone, download ESPN, and kind of just look at a couple of scores on different sports, and you have a little connection point. Local, national, and world news. A lot of people watch the news, spend hours watching the news. To be honest, I could care less about the news, But it's important for us to stay up to date on some current events so we know what's going on, and that's important. But it also gives you a lot of conversation topics and connection points. You say, oh, can you believe this? Can you so-and-so that? Know a little bit about home maintenance, upkeep, or home decor. All right? Know a little bit about gardening. People love talking about their yard. If someone's got lines in their yard, straight lines mowed in their yard, here's a little tip. They enjoy their lawn. They like their yard. Okay? So compliment them on their lawn. They'll carry on the conversation about their lawn. They love talking about their lawn, right? I'm on a group in Facebook, Lawn Care Nut Group. People love talking about their lawns, okay? Or about their houses. Gardening and or farming. It's becoming a big thing in America. People love gardening, growing their own things. They love farming and have a connection point there. So when you see they have a lovely flower garden or they got a garden out back, oh, how are your squash? Oh, not good this year. The buds got frozen and whatever. It's a connection point. Your daughters were talking in the van the other day, and they're saying something about Alice is like, yeah, well, we got to get you to meet a few new people. And they were like, well, it doesn't help that our best friends growing up were chickens. We had to laugh about that. That cracked me up. Up here, know a little bit about hunting, fishing, and hiking, things outdoors. There's a lot of people that do that a little bit. Oh, let me show you the big one downstairs, Boom, you're in the house. My neighbor, Lord, when we first moved in, he was hollering at me a few different times. He didn't like that we moved in, the young kids in the neighborhood, whatever, like rebel rousers. Over the course of my kids being kind to them, my wife being kind to them, just recently I was down in his basement looking at the big one because we had a connection point. And he showed me his buck that he killed. And he gave me a bow that I was able to give to Jack. A guy who had nothing to do with me 5 years ago. Why? Because I was willing to become all things to all men that I could reach him with the gospel. Know a little bit about, here's a great one, okay? You download Yahoo Finance and watch some things on the stock market. There is probably no broader topic of conversation than what goes on in the stock market, because you can learn about all these different companies and how they're doing. And you can watch how Ford is doing, and Amazon and Walmart. Let me tell you, most people who are, middle age or older, they have money in the stock market, and people love their money. I love talking about how the government is doing them dirty on losing their money. And there's a great connection point there. You can talk about the stock market. And it's going to educate you a little bit. Well, I don't get the whole stock thing. I think it's gambling anyways. Not just because you never took the time to figure it out. Do a little bit of research and study. You'll learn something, and you will have a connection point with probably half the people that you encounter. Oh, you see the market got hammered today? Oh, did it ever? Let me tell you about my retirement account. Boom, you're in. Technology. Learn a little bit about technology. Well, I don't understand this technology anymore. These kids, techie, hoo. You know what that is interpreted? I am unwilling to learn. These young people, we're hard on them. Oh, they need to learn how to work. They need how to this or that. But when we're middle-aged or older, we're certainly unwilling to learn how to operate a smartphone or how to work an app so that we can communicate better or learn some things. Be willing to learn about technology. Whether you like it or not, technology is taking over our world. There will not be cash in a few years. There will not be a whole lot of things that you can put your hands on anymore. It's all going to technology. Do I think it's right or wrong? Connection point. 2 more. Cars. Learn about vehicles. Cars. People love talking about their trucks, their ride. And lastly, the weather. If nothing else, people love to complain about the weather. If it's hot, can't wait till it cools off. If it's cold, can't wait till it's hot. If it's raining, man. If it's dry, we need some rain. Always something to talk about the weather. Download the forecast. You see what it's going to do tomorrow? Oh, don't get me started on the weather. Who cares about the weather? I don't even look at the weather. Do you know what's going to rain tomorrow? No. I'll know when it's dropping on me. But we had a little bit of fun talking about those things. But the heart attitude is this. I am willing to be adaptable. I am willing, in generic terms, to be a spiritual chameleon where I can connect with anyone so they have the opportunity to form a relationship so that I can introduce them to Jesus. I become all things to all men. Why? For the gospel's sake.